don't know about you, but sometimes when I turn on the news or read headlines online, it seems as though our reality is really now satirical. Men are women, but men can't have opinions about women's bodies. Radical leftists are now openly supporting terrorists in the Middle East, but those are the same ones who would be the most likely to be killed if they would live in those countries because of their sexual desires and preference. We are literally living in a world upside down. I see this every single day. Joining me today on Explicitly Pro-Life is my good friend Seth Dillon, who hopefully can help us understand this satirical world we are living in. If you've never heard of Seth, you obviously weren't at our National Pro-Life Summit where he brought down the house. He is the CEO of the Babylon Bee, the world's best satire site. He's a Christian pro-life activist on X, which, by the way, I don't understand X because I thought it was Twitter. Maybe it's Twitter that's identifying as X. On X, Seth describes himself as a, quote, trafficker in misinformation under the guise of satire. Welcome, Seth, to the Explicitly Pro-Life podcast.
Welcome. Yeah, there's a reason I describe myself that way. The New York Times had called us a far-right misinformation site that traffics in misinformation under the guise of satire. And so, I just kind of adopted that. I think they're trafficking in misinformation under the guise of journalism, but, that's
absolutely true. Yeah, my TikTok handle, I put on anti-abortion villain. And I was at campus yesterday and they made signs. They're like, the self-described anti-abortion villain is coming to our campus.
I love how, when they'll screenshot it and they'll point to it and they'll say, look, see, she thinks she's a villain. It's like...
I was just reading this thing. It said X, but do you know, okay, let's start off with, Elon Musk, so you are way more important than I am. Is it Twitter or is it X? Because I don't understand.
It's been rebranded as X, so it's the app that was formerly known as Twitter. It's no longer Twitter. They're not tweets; they're posts on X, which is much easier to say.
Okay, not a tweet.
It's not a tweet. I liked the old branding. I liked the old verbiage. Yeah. I think it was cool. Twitter had established such a great brand.
It's like actually a verb now to Twitter.
Just like tweet. Googling something, you're tweeting something, you're retweeting something. It made a lot of sense. It was easy to say. I get his vision for creating this kind of everything app that goes under the name X, but it seems to me like you should be able to have Twitter be like a part of that ecosystem without losing its branding. But I don't know.
Yeah, no, we have like the pro-life generation and then Students for Life is under that, but we don't lose Students for Life. Yeah, I don't know. Like
Elon Musk is smarter than me, so I figure he's got some reason
he's got
for
something up his sleeve.
I can't discern it.
Everybody, also we miss the enjoyment of older people trying to say they're tweeting something by twittering something. So like now we don't even have that, which I myself am guilty of doing. All right, so
Twitter.
Yeah, Twitter posts. Yeah, we're like the world has lost something, I feel like.
Yeah. Well, it still works, and it's still where the conversation happens. So we're glad that we're there. For a long time, we were sidelined for 8 months until Elon let us back on there. So we're grateful that he did that.
Now, let's speak about that. You got to meet Elon. Did you convert him to being pro-life?
I think Elon generally is pro-life. I don't know that he's like pro-life through and through. He's pro-life in the sense that, in a couple of senses, he's pro-life in the sense that he loves humanity and wants to see it flourish, and he thinks we should have more kids. So he definitely sees there's a problem with the birth rate declining and all of that. I think he would, and I don't know if he's actually commented on this explicitly, but I think that he would like to see there be fewer abortions, that there's more babies born, presumably, because he's always talking about how we need to replace ourselves and populate the earth and have more children, and he's trying to take care of that problem himself by having as many as possible. But I don't know. I'm sure he's been pretty socially liberal throughout his life and is probably pro-choice, as you would call it. I don't like using that language, but he's probably pro-choice or pro-abortion in some cases, but not in all. He's certainly not one of those up until birth and maybe a couple weeks after.
Yeah, like everybody here on Capitol Hill who's a Democrat.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I watched the whole interview because I was like, come on, Seth, let's get him on Team Pro-Life, because he definitely does care about children, and he's certainly not a hypocrite because he's having lots of children on his own, and I quote him in almost every campus speech I give now because talking about population decline. I think he has a quote. It's like, the world can't end in adult diapers. And And this is a serious problem that we have, that we are now, officially as America below replacement rate, and it's getting worse. I was on the Hill today talking with some senators about talking to the mushy, movable middle Gen Z about abortion, and how these older white senators decided that they were going to rebrand the pro-life movement for ourselves. Thank you very much. And then went public with their rebranding, and they want their rebranding to be about the pro-baby movement. And what I was trying to explain to them is, that's great. All of us are pro-baby in the pro-life movement, but the people we're trying to convert aren't necessarily excited about babies. They don't even want to have babies. It's pretty shocking. Like, that needs to be a separate discussion we need to have of
right.
These young girls are saying, I'm never going to have a kid. Or if I am, my fertility is going to magically wait till I'm ready at like 45.
Yeah, well, they've become convinced that having a child is a setback and a burden and is an impediment to a successful career and becoming an independent woman. And, these are all the aftershocks and after effects of feminism. And
that's right.
They're still lingering. They're still lingering in young people today. And I don't know, I do see on many issues, I see a lot of people waking up and starting to become aware of exactly how insane some of this stuff is. But you'll see every now and then they'll publish articles, some 30-something-year-old woman having regrets that she's never tried to get married or have kids. And now it's getting a little late for that. She's getting closer to 40 and she's not sure if she ever will or she'll be able to. And there's a lot of regret being expressed. And who knows, maybe that'll lead to some people coming around on that.
I absolutely think it will. And I think the high infertility rates that we're experiencing in our country and the challenges women are even having getting pregnant, and how the IVF industry really exploits the pain that women and couples go through. They're all too willing to accept their money for IVF treatments that have like maybe 30% efficacy. It's completely unbelievable that nobody even has these questions of like, well, wait a minute, let's maybe address why we're seeing high rates of infertility in women. Not just take their money for our, predatory business. But don't worry, there's woke corporate CEOs signing open letters in the New York Times saying they are with it and they support the female folk because, damn it, they're going to pay for their abortions, a couple of days off, and even their travel. That way they can remain single and childless and chained to their desk in the office place. That's feminism today.
Yeah, I don't know how you can possibly wrap that in a package that makes them sound good, but they try.
Oh yeah.
They try to suggest that it's some kind of a perk. Who's it a perk for other than them? They're going to have you working more. You're going to be more productive. You're not going to take any leave because you're pregnant and having kids. I mean, that's a benefit to them, not you.
That's right. I know. That's feminism today is not feminism, which is why it's all upside down. I mean, speaking of things being upside down, I was looking at some of your tweets. Hopefully your phone is okay after dropping it in the urinal and you're all
I've
good.
I've watched it thoroughly. I'm still debating whether or not to replace it.
Wait, it's still working?
It still works. Yeah, these phones are like waterproof now. And I mean, a urinal is not like that deep of water. You're going into pretty shallow urine water mix. So
okay. Well, I know how bad it is. I have like the stalker on my phone, and my husband's like, you just need to get a new phone number. But I'm like, it's been 20 years. I just can't change from one. Like, I still have my old laptop from when it died. I haven't even gotten everything off to like give it to another staff member.
Oh, I get new stuff all the time.
I can't handle it. You're good.
You'll probably become more familiar with urinals though once they're in women's bathrooms, because I'm
sure
they're
that's
gonna have
true.
to install those soon.
That's true. I obviously have been to too many red states because I'm not too familiar with the makeup of urinals, but I really look forward to the smell of urine just really greeting me at the door of the women's restroom more than it does now. But yeah, I was looking at your Twitter after I noticed about your phone and driving the urinal. I saw that the Babylon Bee recently had a big award that you gave out, giving Dylan Mulvaney the Man of the Year award. How did he receive his award from you?
Well, I wish we could give it to him in person. He's got all the telltale characteristics of a great man: an Adam's apple, balls. I don't know. So this was a joke for people who don't know the context. USA Today last year had named Rachel Levine the transgender health admiral, woman of the year. One of their picks for woman of the year. They selected several women, and that was one of them, a male person, Rachel Levine. So, it's hard to parody that. You mentioned, that real life feels like satire, and it really does. It seems like a parody of itself. And that article that we saw where they named a man Woman of the Year just seemed like a joke on the face of it. So how do you exaggerate that and turn that into satire? How do you satirize it? So our take on it was just to name Rachel. We just went straight forward with like more of a factual take on it and said Rachel Levine is our pick for Man of the Year. And so that's actually what got us kicked off Twitter, was that misgendering, that we did there by calling Rachel Levine a man. And so the Dylan Mulvaney joke is just us following up on that.
It's an annual thing.
It was only a matter of time before they named another trans person Woman of the Year, erase more women, take away more of their accolades, give them to men. Men are the best at everything, including being women, apparently.
Thank you very much.
And so we're just trying to poke at that wherever we can. And now we can do it without getting kicked off, thankfully.
Yeah, no, actually, Dylan Mulvaney just a couple weeks ago got an award in Great Britain from some magazine as Woman of the Year as well. So
I'm one of those people.
Ongoing.
I'm solidly in the camp. I think Dylan Mulvaney is faking this whole thing for attention. I think the whole these early on videos that you go back and watch his first days of girlhood.
Yep.
Were so over the top ridiculous. It felt like an elaborate prank that people kind of maybe responded in their wokeness, responded positively to. And then he realized I can turn this into something, and kept going with it. I don't know. But some of those early on videos of him prancing around in a field with high heels on, acting scared of bugs, and it felt so much like a comedy sketch. And now, he's really leaned into it and is being awarded. It's absolutely insane.
Yeah, I mean,
we're
he's
supposed
an
to
actor.
think of these people as marginalized and oppressed. Is Dylan Mulvaney marginalized? Come on.
No, he's literally given accolades for being a woman.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess this goes into a little bit what we're seeing on campuses and the conversations I'm having. I was talking with a transgender woman. Was it a woman? Yes, a transgender woman the other day in Flagstaff, Arizona. And
so a man who identifies as a woman? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, transgender woman.
So you were talking to a man in a dress.
Yes. And so I referred to this person as sir. And
oh no,
they got really mad at me. So then to make fun of me. So this person they were like, well, since you're giving me the wrong pronoun, I'm gonna refer to you as sir as well. That's your wrong pronoun. And so I was like, I don't care. You can call me sir all day long. You see, I don't get violent when you call me the wrong pronoun, because I know I'm not a sir. I'm a ma'am. But
you don't need external affirmation of your womanhood to know that you're a woman.
Nope.
And that's because you have the security of the fact that it's not just a mere belief in your mind, but you're physically a woman.
I have breasts.
So it doesn't matter what people say. They can say whatever they want. It doesn't make any difference. It's only if it's in your head that you need other people affirming you so that you can feel secure in what you're trying to say.
Yeah, no, that's why I pointed to our cameraman. I was like, did you see how I didn't get angry when someone kept using the wrong pronouns, for me? Because that's not what I am. But, it's interesting because in this, the conversation we have on campuses about abortion, more and more get to this conversation as that there is no right and wrong. I had a student just the other week. I'm in the midst of my fall campus tour. So, I'm having conversations with really illogical people and misinformed people almost daily, and then I sit and stew on these conversations where they're not even willing in some of the circumstances to say that there is absolute truth, that there are some things that are absolutely wrong. I had a young man who wouldn't say that in 100% of cases owning another person and exploiting them for free labor was wrong.
Wow.
I was like, well, okay, then I don't really know if we can further our conversation, because you are denying, the liberty of a human person.
Yeah, but the people who will say things like that will also they will turn around and say things like bigotry is wrong. Racism is wrong. They'll say misgendering is objectively wrong and it's harmful. They will say that. They will make moral judgments all day long.
Yeah. Words are violence. They'll say words are violence.
Yeah. So if they're kind of veering off into that relativism and saying it's not always wrong or wrong for everyone, then then who are you to say that I'm wrong for doing what I'm doing or what I'm believing? You just get lost and there's no anchor.
Yeah, no, the words of violence I've heard more and more, but then you actually commit. So like I was rewatching this tape of this professor, the machete professor, who in May approached one of our tables at Hunter College in New York City, who was shouting at our students, "This is violence. You're committing violence. Shut this down." Then came back and then violently like destroyed the table. And another student came and started eating the rubber fetal model we had and chewing our rubber fetal. We've had 6 rubber fetal models since the beginning of this school year, Seth, that have they've either been completely swallowed or they've been chewed up, and then the protester, when we have the police chase them down to get our rubber fetal model back, because these things aren't cheap, will give us back a chewed up fetal model. I had to put a sign in front of my rubber fetal models, choking hazard, because I'm afraid someone's going to choke on our fetal models and then sue me for almost dying.
You need to put something on it. Like there was something that we did with my son's fingernails. He was chewing his nails, and there's some kind of like stuff that you can paint on there that really tastes horrible. And it makes them repulsive. And so it's one of those tactics you use to get them to stop chewing their fingernails. You should douse this rubber fetal model in this stuff. And then maybe they won't bite into it so much.
I know.
That's just demonic and weird.
No, it's very demonic. I mean, I had we've started seeing more and more of this. I eat fetuses for breakfast. People just say that as they pass by. I had a white privileged man yesterday who was sitting on top of our Black Preborn Lives Matter sidewalk chalk at UNC Chapel Hill, and I asked him why, as a white man, he was, covering up the truth about Planned Parenthood's racist history, and then his response was, "I love to eat fetuses." And then he wanted to sleep with my father and did that in very explicit terms. It was lovely. And then I said, "Well, sir, are you a Satanist?" And he said, "Hell yes." And I said, "Okie dokie. Thank you very much."
Bizarre.
It is. You can definitely see spiritual oppression, if not full out possession on somebody.
Yeah, I say all the time, this is not, people think of this in terms as a political battle. It's important what happens in the courts, and it is. All of that's important, but it's fundamentally a spiritual battle, not merely political. The political stuff is just on the surface. The spiritual stuff is what's happening underneath.
Yeah, and there are some deeply wounded young people. And just, I mean, speaking of like the pro-life movement talking on campuses, what do you get as like a white privileged male? Is it more difficult for you than for me to speak about abortion, do you feel like?
Well, only in the sense that they'll try to, dismiss what I have to say before I've even said it because of physical characteristics, no uterus, no opinion is what they used to say. If they still try to say that, it doesn't work anymore because now you don't need a uterus to be a woman, right? I mean, anyone can identify. They're the ones who took that away by saying that trans women are women. Trans women are women. Okay, well then you don't need a uterus, and I can have an opinion. Which is it? Pick one. I don't know. They don't like it when men talk about this because we've never had abortions. We never will have abortions. They don't want us to chime in on it because they don't want us mansplaining. I don't know. I think it's weird. I really don't see why they're so threatened by men having opinions on these things, because the pro-life movement really is predominantly led by women. Mm-hmm. It's not like it's mostly men. There's plenty of men in it, but pregnancy resource centers and pro-life organizations are predominantly composed of women, in my experience, and so. Yep. I don't see why they're so threatened by me. It's women who are making huge headway on this stuff. Huge headway. And by the way, Roe v. Wade, how many women were on the court back when that decision was made?
0. It was 7 men. Yeah. 7 men who gave us Roe v. Wade.
So if their opinion's invalid, then why was Roe v. Wade ever valid in the first place? So I think it's silly. Obviously, it's an ad hominem thing to say that your argument is not valid or what you're saying isn't true simply because you're a man saying it. That has nothing the premises of the argument are either true or false. It doesn't matter what the physical characteristics are of the person who's uttering them.
Arguments, don't have gender, just people do, and there are two.
Right.
So what would be your advice to a young man? I get this question a lot from young men who are involved in Students for Life groups, like, how can I be an effective pro-life advocate? And my advice is just keep doing what you're doing. But do you have some specific advice, man to man, that you can offer?
Maybe it might just be advice that applies to everybody. I think, I think education is critically important. You should learn what you believe and why you believe it so that you can rationally and coherently and articulately defend it. That's crucially important. You can't skip that step. But, I think the really important thing is there's so much pressure in our society to conform. And I think human nature is to just kind of go along with whatever the popular thing is. And you don't want to stand out. You don't want to be an outlier. And I think young people need to understand that even just one dissenting voice makes a huge difference. And a lot of people, I get questions all the time from people who are like in their workplace or at school or whatever. They're like, what can I do to take a stand for free speech or for life or whatever the issue is? And I think the best advice that you can give is to say, look, you have to, or no one else will, because if you go around have you heard of the Ash conformity experiments?
No.
You learn this in school, but in like psychology classes and stuff. I missed it, so I only learned about this recently. But there were these experiments that were done where they had everybody was in on it except the subject, and what they would do is they would pass these sheets of paper around with different length lines on them, like 3 inches, 5 inches, 7 inches, or something like that. They were all different lengths, and then you'd have to match one of those lines to another line on another piece of paper, and it was obvious which one matched. But everybody around the table would pick the wrong one. And then when it got to the subject, they felt immense pressure to go along with what everyone else picked and pick the wrong one. And they knew what the right answer was. They knew what it was, but they wouldn't say it. So like 75% of the people, if everyone picked the wrong one, would also pick the wrong one. There was a very high conformity rate. But then once they introduced just one person who going around the table would pick the right answer, that seemed to give permission to the last person, the subject, that they could say the true thing. And so the conformity rate dropped from 75% to 5%. Wow. That's dramatic. Just one person saying what's true gave permission to that last person. So we're so eager to like go along with everything, but even one person speaking up and saying something true empowers and emboldens and gives permission to people who would otherwise censor themselves or go along with a lie. So I think that's great, a great point to share with young people who are kind of struggling with, well, what impact can I even have if I don't have a huge audience or following or whatever? Just the people at your lunch table, you can make an impact on them just by saying what's true.
That's right. I just wrote that down because I'm totally stealing that, by the way. Thank you very much.
It's great.
No, that is so true, because I was actually up here on the Hill today, meeting with U.S. Senator Marshall, and we were talking about, how do we come alongside women to transform the culture, and showing her all that the pro-life movement does, and how much we actually do care more. And, his point to me was, well, it's great that you just spout off a bunch of organizations, Kristan, but it really comes down to one person. And he was right. I mean, it really does come down to one person. The book I wrote years and years ago, I interviewed girls who everyone had faced a crisis pregnancy. Some chose life, some chose abortion, some chose adoption. And the difference between life and death was the young women who found one person to say, you don't have to do this, chose life. Mm-hmm. That was it. That was the difference.
Makes a world of difference.
That's right.
Did you see Britney Spears' comments?
I did.
She
Can you tell everybody what happened?
Yeah, there was, I didn't read the book. I just saw the headlines, the headlines about how Britney Spears had said in this book that just came out that, I guess Justin Timberlake, right? Got her pregnant, and she wanted to keep the baby, but he didn't want to be a father at the time. And so she said if it was up to her, she would have kept it, but he wasn't ready to be a father. So she actually tells a story about an abortion that she had that she didn't want to have. So, I'm sure there was tremendous pressure on her. He's obviously a public figure and celebrity, and, she didn't want to get into a situation. It's not like she couldn't have supported a baby. She was obviously wealthy and a celebrity on her own, but what a tragic situation.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the Charlotte Lozier Institute says, I think it's over 70% of women who have abortions say they felt coerced to have the abortion. And the majority, what we know from the Guttmacher Institute, is lack of partner support, the partner
Yeah.
telling her to have the abortion. It's so absolutely tragic to hear that. Speaking of conformity, and
Yeah, she has it. This whole thing about a choice. If she has a choice, then she could have chosen life, right?
that's right. But why didn't she? Because her partner
Yeah.
was telling her not to, who was gaining sexual pleasure out of using her body. But then when it came to facing the consequences of the decision, was shocked to find out the consequence was creation of a new human life. And he wasn't ready for that.
Mm.
Yeah, kind of a jackass is how I'd probably put that. But I do want to bring, I was thinking about conformity, what you were saying about that, and what we've seen recently on college campuses that hopefully has disturbed all of America, where we're seeing terrorists, Hamas terrorists, going into Israel, killing babies, raping women, doing terrible things to civilians, taking them hostage. We don't even, I mean, there's still people being held in hostage, we think. And yet on college campuses, there's pro-Hamas demonstrations taking place. They're tearing down all of the like pro-Israeli literature, like the missing signs they're putting up of the people the Israelis' children who are being held hostage.
They'll try to say that it's just pro-Palestine, not pro-Hamas, and they'll try to say that there's a distinction between those two. But I don't know, if you're tearing down the pictures of the people who are missing because they've been kidnapped and are being held hostage, that doesn't really seem like you're just simply promoting the freedom of a people that you think are oppressed. That seems to be siding with the people who took those hostages, and actually you're sending a message that was a good thing that they're taken, and you don't want them found or recovered. Yeah. And I think that's just horrifyingly evil. And the fact that it's so popular that we're seeing it on these campuses, it says so many things. It speaks to how much hatred there is out there that a lot of people aren't aware of. It shows you the true colors of the woke agenda with its decolonization and all of those things. What does this actually look like in practice? They're admitting what it actually looks like and what it really is and what they really want. Yep. Yeah, there's so many elements to this. And it seems to be, it's rooted in this kind of like moral argument, that if you're an oppressed group, then anything is permitted for you. Hamas, the Palestinians, they're an oppressed group, therefore anything is permitted for them. They can do anything, and it's morally justified or morally good. And it's just, that's woke reasoning right there. It's woke reasoning that you're oppressed, you can do anything. Your violence is just speech. It's just, it's just what should happen. You asked for it. You asked for their violence because you oppressed them. And that's just absolutely horrible, especially when you draw women and children into the picture. If this is just a land dispute, and you're going to go to war over it, fight the man to man on the battlefield.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, Hamas, digs tunnels under schools. They purposely had kept their own people from leaving Gaza. Egypt has closed its borders.
Well, and this is why the life issue is so important. It's once you see that ground, once you give up that human life is inherently valuable, which is what the pro-life argument is all about, is that it is inherently valuable. If you give that up for anything, including in the abortion debate, then you really give up every argument in defense of innocent human life at every stage. So it's really crucial to all of this. Everybody who's bought into, I'll put it in scare quotes because I hate using the terminology, but pro-choice reasoning ends up in some position where they could fall down on the side of Hamas at some point, because human life is not inherently valuable. In some cases, even women and children are completely expendable if it serves some political cause or convenience or rights some other historic wrong for some oppressed group. So, yeah, I mean, it underscores, I think, the importance of exactly what we're arguing for.
Yeah, we're reaping what we've sowed. Do you ever think we'll get to a point where everything in the world is just so outrageous, there'll be no such thing as satire anymore?
Well, I do. I joke about it. I joke that if we ever go out of business, it will be because reality and satire have finally become completely indistinguishable from one another. But honestly, it feels like we're already there in a lot of ways. There are so many headlines that we read that look like parody, and even just silly stuff like, Biden standing up there saying, I've got 2 words for you, made in America, like silly stuff. It feels like it's from a Saturday Night Live skit. It's harmless, but it's just so outrageous. Trump too, Biden and Trump, they're such caricatures.
Oh yeah.
So it does feel like we are definitely living in a post-truth world,
Yep.
where we are moving away from the truth very quickly, and radically insane things are becoming very commonplace and widely accepted. 2 and 2 equals 5 all over the place. So,
That's right.
I do think, it was Chesterton who said the world has become too absurd to be satirized back in 1911.
Wow.
And I just can't even imagine what he would think if he saw the world today.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. We'll always try. And if not, we'll just fall back on Not the Beat, which reports the real news.
Yeah, that confused me for a while. I had to dig into that. And my mom, when Babylon Bee first came out, I had to tell my mom, like, Mom, this is satire. Like, we needed an education of our parents to get everyone on the same page of what was happening here. But that's why what you're doing is so important, that the Bee, the Babylon Bee and Not the Bee, because we have to continue to get out the truth. And I loved what you said about the Ash experiment there, of the difference one person could make, which is why, everyone who's watching this podcast, who's going to be watching and listening or seeing a clip on Instagram or wherever, you have a role to play in this. It's not just Seth and his team making satirical headlines. It's you sharing it. It's you in class. It's you at work, being that one person to say, wait a minute, what is actually the truth of the matter here? What is it we're actually discussing? There is work for all of us to do, because we're not going to end abortion without getting the truth out there and being allowed.
And it requires courage. It requires boldness, because it's not just an experiment where, okay, if you're the outlier, what does that mean? What's the penalty for that? There's no penalty. You're just the outlier in the experiment. The social pressure is strong even in that situation. Imagine when you layer in the penalty of being ostracized or being called names or losing your job or being canceled or whatever it is that they try to throw at you, the death threats, the insults. Yep. You pay a price in the real world when you stand up for something, but those attacks mean you're doing something right. You're saying something true.
Yeah. Is paying the price worth it?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would agree. Thank you so much, Seth, for coming on today. If you don't know where to follow the Babylon Bee, I don't know. I mean, you can DM me. If you can figure out how to DM me, I can tell you. But they're everywhere on social media, Instagram, X, formerly known as the app called Twitter. I even think you're still on Facebook. Are you still on Facebook?
Somehow we're still on Facebook. We're throttled there, so we don't drive a lot of traffic anymore, but we're still there. We still have a presence.
Are you on TikTok?
No.
Yeah, you don't want the Chinese spy on your phone.
No, we even started a Threads account to see if we could get kicked off. But so far, I don't know. They're not paying attention to us. We don't have enough followers, I guess.
All right, so everyone needs to follow Babylon Bee at Threads, is what you just told me. Let's just perform a little experiment of our own to see if Meta will kick Babylon Bee off Threads. Let's all follow them. All right, thank you, Seth. Thanks for coming on today. Thank you all for tuning in to this very special episode of the Explicitly Pro Life podcast. I'll see you next week.